God is a relative term. Starting from Scratch by Robert Sheckley. Last night I had a very strange dream. I dreamed that a voice said to me, "Excuse me for interrupting your previous dream, but I have an urgent problem, and only you can help me with it." I dreamed that I replied, "No apologies are necessary. It wasn't that good a dream, and if I can help you in any way—" "Only you can help," the voice said. "Otherwise, I and all my people are doomed." "Christ," I said. His name was Froka, and he was a member of a very ancient race. They had lived since time immemorial in a broad valley surrounded by gigantic mountains. They were a peaceable people, and they had, in the course of time, produced some outstanding artists. Their laws were exemplary, and they brought up their children in a loving and permissive manner. Though a few of them tended to indulge in drunkenness, and they had even known an occasional murderer, they considered themselves good and respectable sentient beings who— I interrupted. "Look here, can't you get straight to the urgent problem?" Froka apologized for being long-winded, but explained that on his world, the standard form for supplications included a lengthy statement about the moral righteousness of the supplicant. "Okay," I told him, "let's get to the problem." Froka took a deep breath and began. He told me that about 100 years ago, as they reckoned time, an enormous reddish-yellow shaft had descended from the skies, landing close to the statue to the unknown god in front of the city hall of their third-largest city. The shaft was imperfectly cylindrical and about 2 miles in diameter. It ascended upward beyond the reach of their instruments and in defiance of all natural laws. They tested and found that the shaft was impervious to cold, heat, bacteria, proton bombardment, and in fact everything else they could think of. It stood there, motionless and incredible, for precisely 5 months, 19 hours, and 6 minutes. Then, for no reason at all, the shaft began to move in a north-northwesterly direction. Its mean speed was 78.881 miles per hour, as they reckoned speed. It cut a gash 183.223 miles long by 2.011 miles wide, and then disappeared. A symposium of scientific authorities could reach no conclusion about this event. They finally declared that it was inexplicable, unique, and unlikely ever to be duplicated. But it did happen again, a month later, and this time in the capital. This time the cylinder moved a total of 820.331 miles in seemingly erratic patterns. Property damage was incalculable, and several thousand lives were lost. 2 months and a day after that, the shaft returned again, affecting all 3 major cities. By this time, everyone was aware that not only their individual lives, but their entire civilization, their very existence as a race, was threatened by some unknown and perhaps unknowable phenomenon. This knowledge resulted in a widespread despair among the general population. There was a rapid alternation between hysteria and apathy. The fourth assault took place in the wastelands to the east of the capital. Real damage was minimal. Nevertheless, this time there was mass panic, which resulted in a frightening number of deaths by suicide. The situation was desperate. Now the pseudosciences were brought into the struggle alongside the sciences. No help was disdained, no theory was discounted, whether it be by biochemist, palmist, or astronomer. Not even the most outlandish conception could be disregarded, especially after the terrible summer night in which the beautiful ancient city of Raz and its 2 suburbs were completely annihilated. "Excuse me," I said. "I'm sorry to hear that you've had all this trouble, but I don't see what it has to do with me." "I was just coming to that," the voice said. Then continue, I said, but I would advise you to hurry up, because I think I'm going to wake up soon. My own part in this is rather difficult to explain, Froka continued. I am by profession a certified public accountant. But as a hobby, I dabble in various techniques for expanding mental perception. Recently, I have been experimenting with a chemical compound which we call cola, and which frequently causes states of deep illumination. We have similar compounds, I told him. Then you understand. Well, while voyaging, do you use that term? While under the influence, so to speak, I obtained a knowledge, a completely far-out understanding, but it's so difficult to explain. Go on, I broke in impatiently. Get to the heart of it. Well, the voice said, I realized that my world existed upon many levels, atomic, subatomic, vibrationary planes, an infinity of levels of reality, all of which are also parts of other levels of existence. I know about that, I said excitedly. I recently realized the same thing about my world. So it was apparent to me, Froka went on, that one of our levels was being disturbed. Could you be a little more specific? I asked. My own feeling is that my world is experiencing an intrusion on a molecular level. Wild, I told him. But have you been able to trace down the intrusion? I think that I have, the voice said, but I have no proof. All of this is pure intuition. I believe in intuition myself, I told him. Tell me what you found out. Well, sir, the voice said hesitantly, I have come to realize, intuitively, that my world is a microscopic parasite of you. Say it straight. All right. I have discovered that in one aspect, in one plane of reality, my world exists between the second and third knuckles of your left hand. It has existed there for millions of our years, which are minutes to you. I cannot prove this, of course, and I am certainly not accusing you. That's okay, I told him. You say that your world is located between the second and third knuckles of my left hand. All right. What can I do about it? Well, sir, my guess is that recently you have begun scratching in the area of my world. Scratching? I think so. And you think that the great destructive reddish shaft is one of my fingers? Precisely. And you want me to stop scratching? Only near that spot, the voice said hastily. It is an embarrassing request to make, and I make it only to save my world from utter destruction, and I apologize. Don't bother apologizing, I said. Sentient creatures should be ashamed of nothing. It's kind of you to say so, the voice said. We are non-human, you know, and parasites, and we have no claims on you. All sentient creatures should stick together, I told him. You have my word that I will never again, so long as I live, scratch between the first and second knuckles of my left hand. The second and third knuckles, he reminded me. I'll never again scratch between any of the knuckles of my left hand. That is a solemn pledge and a promise which I will keep as long as I have breath. Sir, the voice said, you have saved my world. No thanks could be sufficient, but I thank you nevertheless. Don't mention it, I said. Then the voice went away, and I woke up. As soon as I remembered the dream, I put a band-aid across the knuckles of my left hand. I have ignored various itches in that area, have not even washed my left hand. I have worn this band-aid all day. At the end of next week, I am going to take off the band-aid. I figure that should give them 20 or 30 billion years as they reckon time, which ought to be long enough for any race. But that isn't my problem. My problem is that lately I have begun to have some unpleasant intuitions about the earthquakes along the San Andreas Fault and the renewed volcanic activity in central Mexico. I mean, It's all coming together and I'm scared. So, look, excuse me for interrupting your previous dream, but I have this urgent problem that only you can help me with.